ॐ श्री परमात्मने नमः। श्रीमद्भगवद् गीता अथ द्वितीयोऽध्यायः। सञ्जय उवाच तं तथा कृपयाविष्टम् अश्रुपूर्णाकुलेक्षणं विषीदन्तमिदं वाक्यम् उवाच मधुसूदनः।
This chapter begins with Sanjay, the narrator, describing Arjuna's feelings of deep sorrow and confusion. Arjuna, a great warrior, is standing in the middle of the battlefield, overwhelmed by the thought of fighting his own relatives and teachers. He is filled with sadness and doubt about whether this battle is the right thing to do. This verse sets the stage for Lord Krishna's teachings that follow, where Krishna will guide Arjuna to understand his duties and the nature of life. This verse highlights the human emotions of fear, confusion, and the struggle to do what is right.
Shri Bhagavanuvāca Kutastvākashmalamidam Vishame samupasthitam Anaryajushthamasvargyam Akirtikaram Arjuna. In this verse, Lord Krishna speaks to Arjuna for the first time. He gently scolds Arjuna for his weakness and confusion. Krishna asks why Arjuna is feeling so troubled and afraid when he should be brave. He tells Arjuna that this kind of fear and sorrow is not suitable for a warrior like him. Krishna's message is that it's important to face challenges with courage and strength. By doing so, one can overcome fear and make the right decisions, even in tough situations. Klaibyam asmagamah partha naitattvayupapadyate kshudram hridaya daurbalyan tyaktvotishtha parantapa. In this verse, Lord Krishna continues to encourage Arjuna. He tells Arjuna that his fear and hesitation are not worthy of a great warrior. Krishna says that by giving in to these feelings, Arjuna is acting like a coward, which will not bring him honor. Krishna urges Arjuna to shake off this weakness and stand up with determination. The message here is about overcoming self-doubt and fear and rising to face challenges with courage and confidence. Arjuna uvacha katham bhishmamaham sankhye द्रोणै च मधुसूदन इक्षुभिः प्रतियोत्स्यामि पूजार्हा वरिसूदन. In this verse, Arjuna speaks to Lord Krishna, explaining why he is hesitant to fight. He asks Krishna how he can attack people he respects deeply, like his teachers and elders. Arjuna feels it would be wrong to harm those who have taught him and helped him grow. This verse shows Arjuna's inner conflict between his duty as a warrior and his love and respect for his elders. It highlights the difficulty of making tough decisions, especially when they involve people we care about. Guru nahatva hi mahanubhavan shreyo bhoktun bhakshamapi haloke hatvarthakamanstu guru nihaiva bhunjiya bhogan nurudhira pradigdhan. In this verse, Arjuna continues to express his sorrow to Krishna. He says that it would be better to live as a beggar than to kill his respected teachers and elders for the sake of power and wealth. Arjuna feels that no success or happiness can come from causing harm to those he holds dear. This verse reveals Arjuna's deep respect for his elders and his moral struggle. It shows how he values relationships and principles more than the worldly gains, even though he is expected to fulfill his duty as a warrior. Na chaitadvidma kataranno gariyo yadva jayema yadivano jayeyuhu yaneva hatva najijivishamas tevasthitaf pramukhe dhartarashtraha. In this verse, Arjuna admits that he is completely confused. He doesn't know whether it would be better to win the battle or be defeated. He is torn between fighting for victory and avoiding the battle to spare his loved ones. Arjuna feels lost because either choice seems painful and wrong to him. This verse shows Arjuna's deep uncertainty and highlights how difficult it can be to make decisions when the outcome is unclear or when both options seem equally bad. It reflects the human experience of facing tough choices and not knowing which path to take. कार्पण्यदोषोपहतस्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यच्छ्रेयस्यान्निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम्. In this verse, Arjuna finally surrenders to Lord Krishna. He admits that he is overwhelmed with sorrow and confusion and doesn't know what the right thing to do is. Arjuna asks Krishna to guide him, saying that he is now Krishna's student and will follow his advice. This verse marks a turning point where Arjuna seeks wisdom beyond his own understanding. It shows the importance of asking for help when we are confused or lost and being open to learning from others who have more knowledge and clarity. Nahi prapashyami mamapunudyad yachchokamuchchoshanamindriyanam avapya bhumavasapannamriddham rajyam suranam api chadhipatyam. In this verse, Arjuna tells Krishna that no amount of worldly success, even ruling the entire earth or heaven, could make him feel better. He is so deeply sad that he believes nothing can lift his spirits or ease his pain. This verse shows how Arjuna's sorrow goes beyond material desires. It teaches that true happiness cannot be found in external things like wealth or power, but must come from within, often requiring wisdom and understanding to overcome internal turmoil. Sanjaya Uvacha Evamuktvā Rishikesham Gudakesha Parantapa Nayotsya iti Govindam Uktva Tushnim Babhuvaha. In this verse, Sanjaya, the narrator, describes Arjuna's state. After expressing all his doubts and fears, Arjuna declares that he will not fight and then becomes quiet. This shows Arjuna's deep inner conflict and his decision to avoid the battle even though he knows it's his duty. This moment highlights Arjuna's struggle between his emotions and his responsibilities. It teaches us that sometimes when we are overwhelmed, we might feel like giving up, but it's also a moment where we need guidance to find the right path forward. Tamuvacha Rishikeshav Prahasanniva Bharata Senayorubhayor Madhye Vishidantamidam Vachaha. In this verse, Krishna, with a compassionate smile, begins to speak to Arjuna, who is deeply troubled and sitting between the two armies. Krishna's gentle smile indicates his understanding of Arjuna's confusion and his readiness to guide him. This verse sets the stage for Krishna's teachings that will follow, showing that when we are in doubt or distress, a wise guide can help us see the situation more clearly and find the strength to move forward. It emphasizes the importance of compassion and wisdom in offering guidance to those in need. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Ashocyananvashocastvam Pragyavadanscha bhashase Gatasuna Gatasunscha Nanushocanti Panditaha. In this verse, Lord Krishna begins his teachings by gently correcting Arjuna. Krishna tells him that while Arjuna's words may sound wise, he is actually mourning unnecessarily. Krishna explains that a truly wise person understands that life and death are part of a larger cycle and doesn't grieve for either. This verse teaches us that wisdom involves seeing beyond our immediate emotions and understanding the deeper truths of life. It encourages us to stay calm and clear-minded, even in difficult situations, by recognizing the bigger picture. Nadvevahai jatunansam natvam neme janadhipaha न चैव न भविष्यामः सर्वे वयमतः परम्.
In this verse, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that neither he nor the other people on the battlefield have ever been non-existent, and they will always continue to exist in some form. Krishna is emphasizing that our true selves are eternal and never truly die. This verse helps us understand that while our physical forms may change, our essence remains constant. It reassures us that life and existence go beyond just our physical bodies, providing a sense of continuity and peace.
देहिनोऽस्मिन् यथा देहे कौमारं यौवनं जरा तथा देहान्तरप्राप्तिर्धीरस्तत्र न मुह्यति.
In this verse, Lord Krishna explains that just like our body changes from being a child to an old person, the soul moves from one body to another after death. A wise person understands this and is not troubled by these changes. This verse helps us understand that changes in our physical body are normal and that our true self, the soul, continues to live on. It encourages us to accept life's changes with wisdom and not be afraid of the natural process of life and death.
मात्रा स्पर्शास्तु कौन्तेय शीतोष्णसुखदुःखदाः आगमापायिनो नित्यास्तान् स्थितिक्षस्व भारत.
In this verse, Lord Krishna advises Arjuna to endure the changing sensations of life, like heat and cold or happiness and sadness. These experiences are temporary and will pass, so it's important to remain calm and patient. This verse teaches us to handle life's ups and downs with patience, knowing that they are only temporary. By enduring these changes with a steady mind, we can maintain inner peace and stability.
यं हि न व्यथयन्त्येते पुरुषं पुरुषर्षभ समदुःखसुखं धीरं सोमृतत्वाय कल्पते.
In this verse, Lord Krishna explains that a person who stays calm and balanced whether they are experiencing happiness or sadness is truly wise. Such a person is not affected by temporary feelings and is ready for eternal peace. This verse teaches us that staying steady and not letting our emotions control us helps us find deeper, lasting peace. By being even-tempered in all situations, we align ourselves with a more enduring, peaceful state of being.
नासतो विद्यते भावो नाभावो विद्यते सतः उभयोरपि दृष्टोऽन्तस्त्वनयोस्त्यत्वदर्शिभिः.
In this verse, Lord Krishna explains that things that are temporary and changing do not truly exist forever, while the eternal, unchanging truth always remains. The wise people understand this difference. This verse teaches us to recognize that while our physical experiences and objects may change, there is a deeper eternal truth that remains constant. Understanding this helps us see beyond temporary changes and find lasting peace.
अविनाशि तु तद्विद्धि येन सर्वमिदं ततं विनाशमव्ययस्यास्य न कश्चित् कर्तुमर्हति.
In this verse, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that the eternal, unchanging essence, which is present everywhere, cannot be destroyed. This essence is beyond the physical changes and cannot be harmed by anyone. This verse helps us understand that while our physical bodies and experiences may change, the true, unchanging essence within us is eternal and indestructible. Knowing this brings comfort and stability, as it reminds us of our everlasting inner truth.
अन्तवन्त इमे देहा नित्यस्योक्ता शरीरिणः अनाशिनो अप्रमेयस्य तस्माद्युध्यस्व भारत.
In this verse, Lord Krishna explains that our physical bodies are temporary and will eventually be destroyed, but the soul inside us is eternal and cannot be harmed. He encourages Arjuna to fight with courage because the true self or soul remains unaffected by physical changes. This verse teaches us to focus on the eternal aspect of ourselves rather than being afraid of temporary changes or losses. It helps us approach challenges with confidence, knowing that our true essence is always safe and enduring.
यैनं वेत्ति हन्तारै यश्चैनं मन्यते हतम् उभौ तौ न विजानीतो नायं हन्ति न हन्यते.
In this verse, Lord Krishna explains that anyone who believes the soul can be killed or that it kills others is mistaken. The soul is not involved in killing or being killed. It is eternal and unchanged. This verse teaches us that the true self or soul is beyond physical actions and remains unaffected by life and death. Understanding this helps us see beyond temporary events and stay focused on our eternal nature.
न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचिन् नायं भूत्वा भविता वा न भूयः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणो न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे.
In this verse, Lord Krishna explains that the soul is eternal and never experiences birth or death. It always exists and remain unchanged even when the body dies. This verse helps us understand that our true self, the soul, is permanent and unaffected by physical changes. Knowing this can give us peace as it assures us that our essence remains safe and continuous no matter what happens to our bodies.
वेदाविनाशिनं नित्यं यैनमजमव्ययम् कथं स पुरुषः पार्थ कङ्घातयति हन्तिकम्.
In this verse, Lord Krishna asks Arjuna how anyone who understands that the soul is eternal and unchanging could think they are killing or causing death. The soul is not affected by physical actions like killing. This verse teaches that the soul is beyond physical harm, so it's impossible to kill it. This helps us understand that our true essence remains unaffected by worldly actions and changes.
वासांसि जीर्णानि यथा विहाय नवानि गृह्णाति नरोपराणि तथा शरीराणि विहाय जीर्णान्यन्यानि संयाति नवानि देहि.
In this verse, Lord Krishna explains that just as we change old clothes for new ones, the soul changes from one body to another when the old body becomes unfit. The soul itself remains the same even as it takes on a new form. This verse helps us understand that life is a continuous journey where the soul moves from one body to another. It reassures us that death is not the end but a transition, much like changing clothes.
नैनं छिन्दन्ति शस्त्राणि नैनं दहति पावकः न चैनं क्लेदयन्त्यापो न शोषयति मारुतः.
In this verse, Lord Krishna emphasizes the indestructible nature of the soul. He explains that the soul is beyond physical harm. It cannot be cut by weapons, burned by fire, soaked by water, or dried by the wind. This verse teaches us that the soul is eternal and untouchable by any physical form. It helps us realize that our true self is protected from all worldly dangers and remains unaffected by physical threats.
अच्छेद्योऽयमदाह्योऽयम् अक्लेद्योष्योष्य एव च नित्यः सर्वगतस्थाणुर् अचलोऽयं सनातनः.
In this verse, Lord Krishna further describes the soul's indestructible nature. He explains that the soul cannot be broken, burned, soaked, or dried. It is eternal, present everywhere, unchanging, and everlasting. This verse teaches us that the soul is beyond physical harm and remains constant through all changes. It helps us understand that our true essence is stable and eternal, giving us a sense of peace and security in the face of life's challenges.
अव्यक्तोऽयमचिन्त्योऽयम् अविकार्योऽयमुच्यते तस्मादेवं विदित्वैनं नानुशोचितुमर्हसि.
In this verse, Lord Krishna explains that the soul is beyond our senses. It cannot be seen, fully understood, or changed. Since the soul is eternal and unaltered by physical events, there is no need to grieve over the body's temporary changes. This verse teaches us to accept that the soul is beyond physical perception and remains constant despite any changes. By understanding this, we can find peace and avoid unnecessary sorrow when facing the inevitable changes of life.
अथ चैनं नित्यजातं नित्यं वा वन्यसे मृतं तथापि त्वं महाबाहो नैवं शोचितुमर्हसि.
In this verse, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that even if he believes the soul is repeatedly born and dies, there is still no reason to grieve. The cycle of life and death is natural and inevitable. This verse teaches us that whether we view the soul as eternal or as constantly undergoing birth and death, mourning is unnecessary. Understanding the natural process of life and death helps us accept it with peace and avoid sorrow.
जातस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्युर्ध्रुवै जन्म मृतस्य च तस्मादपरिहार्येऽर्थे न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि.
In this verse, Lord Krishna explains that birth and death are natural and unavoidable parts of life. Everyone who is born will eventually die, and after death, the soul will be reborn. Since this cycle is inevitable, there is no reason to mourn. This verse teaches us to accept the natural cycle of life and death with understanding. By realizing that these events are part of the universal order, we can approach them with peace and avoid unnecessary sorrow.
अव्यक्तादीनि भूतानि व्यक्तमध्यानि भारत अव्यक्तनिधनान्यैव तत्र का परिदेवना.
In this verse, Lord Krishna explains that all living beings start in an unmanifested invisible state, become visible when they are born, and return to the unmanifested state after death. Since this is the natural cycle, there is no need to mourn. This verse teaches us that life is a temporary, visible phase in a much larger, invisible cycle. Understanding this helps us accept the temporary nature of life and avoid unnecessary grief over things that are part of this natural process.
आश्चर्यवत् पश्यति कश्चिदेनम् आश्चर्यवत् वदति तथैव चान्यः आश्चर्यवच्चैनमन्य शृणोति श्रुत्वापि न वेद न चैव कश्चित्.
In this verse, Lord Krishna explains that the soul is a profound and mysterious concept that amazes those who perceive or hear about it. Despite its wonder, not everyone can fully understand or grasp the true nature of the soul. This verse teaches us that the soul is a deep and extraordinary reality that may be difficult to comprehend. It encourages us to approach the concept of the soul with wonder and humility, recognizing that its true nature may be beyond our full understanding.
देहि नित्यमवध्योऽयन् देहे सर्वस्य भारत तस्मात् सर्वाणि भूतानि न त्वं शोचितुमर्हसि.
In this verse, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that the soul inside every living being is eternal and cannot be destroyed, even though the body may perish. Since the soul is everlasting, there is no need to grieve over the loss of physical bodies. This verse teaches us that our true essence, the soul, is indestructible. Understanding this helps us accept the natural process of life and death without unnecessary sorrow, knowing that the soul lives on.
स्वधर्ममपि चावेक्ष्य न विकम्पितुमर्हसि धर्म्याद्धियुद्धात् श्रेयोऽन्यत् क्षत्रियस्य न विद्यते.
In this verse, Lord Krishna reminds Arjuna of his duty as a Kshatriya warrior. He tells Arjuna that it is his duty to fight in a just and righteous war, and nothing is more honorable for a warrior than fulfilling this duty. This verse teaches us the importance of following our duty, especially when it aligns with righteousness. It encourages us to stay strong and fulfill our responsibilities even when faced with difficult situations. knowing that doing so is the right path.
यदृच्छया चोपपन्नं स्वर्गद्वारमपावृतं सुखिनः क्षत्रियाः पार्थ लभन्ते युद्धमीदृशम्.
In this verse, Lord Krishna explains that for a warrior, a battle that is righteous and noble can be a rare opportunity to gain great rewards, such as reaching heaven. Such a battle is seen as a blessing. This verse teaches that facing challenges, especially those aligned with duty and righteousness, can lead to great spiritual rewards. It encourages embracing one's responsibilities with the understanding that they can lead to positive outcomes.
अथ चेत्तमिमं धर्म्यं सङ्ग्रामं च करिष्यसि ततः स्वधर्मं कीर्तिं च हित्वा पापमवाप्स्यसि.
In this verse, Lord Krishna warns Arjuna that if he does not fight in this righteous battle, he will abandon his duty and lose his honor. Moreover, he will incur sin for not fulfilling his responsibilities. This verse teaches the importance of fulfilling one's duties and responsibilities, especially when they are righteous and noble. It emphasizes that avoiding one's duty can lead to loss of honor and moral failure.
अकीर्तिं चापि भूतानि कथयिष्यन्ति ते व्ययाम् सम्भावितस्य चाकीर्तिर्मरणादतिरिच्यते.
In this verse, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that if he avoids his duty and refuses to fight, people will remember his cowardice forever. For someone who values honor, losing respect and facing disgrace is more painful than dying. This verse teaches us the significance of honor and reputation. It encourages us to fulfill our duties courageously, as avoiding them can lead to lasting dishonor, which can be more damaging than physical harm or death.
भयाद्रणादुपरतं मन्स्यन्ते त्वां महारथाः येषां च त्वं बहुमतो भूत्वा यास्यसि लाघवम्.
In this verse, Lord Krishna warns Arjuna that if he avoids the battle, other warriors who respect him will assume he acted out of fear. This will cause him to lose their respect and honor. This verse teaches us the importance of courage in fulfilling our duties. It reminds us that our actions are observed by others, and avoiding responsibility can lead to a loss of respect and reputation amongst those who value us.
अवाच्य वादांश्च बहून् वदिष्यन्ति तवाहिताः निन्दन्तः स्वसामर्थ्यं ततो दुःखतरन्नु किम्.
In this verse, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that if he avoids the battle, his enemies will insult him and question his strength and courage. The criticism and mockery from his enemies would cause him great pain. This verse teaches the value of standing strong in the face of challenges. It highlights that the pain of enduring insults and losing respect can be worse than facing the challenge itself, encouraging us to act with courage and determination.
हतो वा प्राप्स्यसि स्वर्गं जित्वा वा भोक्ष्यसे महीम् तस्मादुत्तिष्ठ कौन्तेय युद्धाय कृतनिश्चयः.
In this verse, Lord Krishna encourages Arjuna by explaining that whether he wins or loses in battle, he will gain something valuable. If he dies, he will go to heaven, and if he wins, he will rule the earth. Either outcome is favorable. This verse teaches us that taking action with determination and facing challenges head-on leads to positive outcomes, regardless of the result. It encourages us to embrace our duties with courage and confidence.
सुखदुःखे समे कृत्वा लाभालाभौ जयाजयौ ततो युद्धाय युज्यस्व नैवं पापमवाप्स्यसि.
In this verse, Lord Krishna advises Arjuna to approach the battle with a balanced mindset, treating both good and bad outcomes equally. He should not be swayed by emotions or desires, but should focus on doing his duty. This verse teaches us the importance of maintaining equanimity in all situations. By staying calm and focused without getting attached to success or failure, we can fulfill our responsibilities without being burdened by guilt or negative consequences.
एषा ते भिहिता साङ्ख्ये बुद्धिर्योगे त्विमां शृणु बुद्ध्या युक्तो यया पार्थ कर्मबन्धं प्रहास्यसि.
In this verse, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that he has explained the philosophical knowledge or Sankhya to him. Now he will explain the practical wisdom of yoga, which when followed will help Arjuna break free from the cycle of karma or the bondage of actions. This verse highlights the importance of understanding both knowledge, that is Sankhya, and practice, that is yoga. It teaches that by combining wisdom with action, one can live a life free from the attachment and consequences of actions, leading to true freedom.
नेहाभिक्रमनाशोऽस्ति प्रत्यवायो न विद्यते स्वल्पमप्यस्य धर्मस्य त्रायते महतो भयात्.
In this verse, Lord Krishna reassures Arjuna that on the path of spiritual practice or yoga, no effort is ever wasted and there are no negative consequences. Even a small amount of sincere effort in following this path can save one from great dangers and fears. This verse teaches us the value of spiritual practice and right action. It emphasizes that any effort made in the direction of righteousness and self-improvement is valuable and can lead to significant protection and progress in life.
व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः एकेह कुरु नन्दन बहुशाखायनन्ताश्च बुद्धयो व्यवसायिनाम्.
In this verse, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that those who are focused and determined have a single-minded approach. Their thoughts are clear and directed towards one goal. However, those who lack determination have scattered thoughts and are easily distracted by many different ideas. This verse teaches the importance of focus and determination in achieving success. It encourages cultivating a strong, unwavering mindset to stay committed to one's goals and avoid being sidetracked by unnecessary distractions.
यामिमां पुष्पितां वाचं प्रवदन्त्यविपश्चितः वेदवादरताः पार्थ नान्यदस्तीति वादिनः.
In this verse, Lord Krishna explains that some people lacking true wisdom become overly attached to the flowery language and ritual of the Vedas. They believe that these rituals are the ultimate goal without realizing there is a deeper spiritual truth. This verse teaches us to look beyond the surface level of religious practices and seek the true essence of spiritual wisdom. It warns against getting caught up in ritualistic practices without understanding their deeper meaning and encourages us to focus on the higher purpose of spiritual growth.
कामात्मनः स्वर्गपरा जन्मकर्मफलप्रदां क्रियाविशेषबहुलां भोगेश्वर्यगतिं प्रति.
In this verse, Lord Krishna describes people who are driven by desires and are obsessed with achieving heavenly pleasures and material wealth. These individuals focus on performing rituals that promise rewards like enjoyment and power rather than seeking true spiritual enlightenment. This verse teaches that focusing solely on material gains and pleasures, even though religious practices, can distract us from the higher purpose of spiritual growth. It encourages us to look beyond temporary pleasures and aim for deeper, more meaningful spiritual fulfillment.
भोगैश्वर्यप्रसक्तानां तया पर्यतचेतसां व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः समाधौ न विधीयते.
In this verse, Lord Krishna explains that people who are overly attached to material pleasures and wealth find it difficult to maintain a focused and steady mind. Their desires and attachments distract them, making it hard to practice true meditation or achieve inner peace. This verse teaches us that excessive attachment to worldly pleasures can disturb our mental focus and hinder our spiritual progress. It encourages us to seek balance so we can cultivate a calm and focused mind. essential for spiritual growth and true happiness.
त्रैगुण्य विषया वेदा निस्त्रैगुण्यो भवार्जुन निर्द्वन्द्वो नित्यसत्त्वस्थो निर्योगक्षेम आत्मवान्.
In this verse, Lord Krishna advises Arjuna to go beyond the teachings of the Vedas that are focused on the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. He encourages Arjuna to be steady in the mode of goodness, to rise above dualities like pleasure and pain, and to be unconcerned with material gains and losses. Instead, Arjuna should focus on self-realization. This verse teaches us the importance of transcending material concerns and focusing on spiritual growth. It encourages us to stay balanced and focused on our higher self rather than getting caught up in the temporary ups and downs of life.
यावानर्थ उदपाने सर्वतः सम्प्लुतोदके तावान् सर्वेषु वेदेषु ब्राह्मणस्य विजानतः.
In this verse, Lord Krishna compares the knowledge of the Vedas to a small pond which serves specific purposes, while the understanding of the ultimate truth is like a vast reservoir that fulfills all needs. A person who realizes the highest spiritual knowledge sees beyond the rituals and practices of the Vedas and understands their true essence. This verse teaches us that while religious texts and rituals have their value, realizing the ultimate spiritual truth is far more comprehensive and fulfilling. It encourages us to seek deeper understanding and wisdom beyond the surface level of rituals and practices.
कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भुर्मा ते सङ्गोऽस्त्वकर्मणि.
In this verse, Lord Krishna advises Arjuna to focus on doing his duty without worrying about the results. He explains that while we can control our actions, we should not be attached to the outcomes, whether good or bad. We should also avoid the temptation of not doing our duty. This verse teaches us to act with dedication and sincerity while letting go of attachment to the results. It encourages us to perform our responsibilities with a balanced mind, free from worries about success or failure.
योगस्थः कुरु कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा धनञ्जय सिद्ध्यः सिद्ध्यौ समो भूत्वा समत्वं योग उच्यते.
In this verse, Lord Krishna advises Arjuna to perform his duties while remaining anchored in yoga, which means staying balanced and focused. He emphasizes the importance of doing one's work without attachment to success or failure and treating both outcomes with equanimity. This verse teaches that true yoga is not just about physical practice but also about maintaining a balanced mind in all situations. It encourages us to stay calm and composed regardless of the results of our actions and to
दूरेण यौवरं कर्म बुद्धियोगा धनञ्जय बुद्धौ शरणमन्विच्छ कृपणाः फलहेतवः.
In this verse, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that actions motivated by selfish desires are inferior to those performed with wisdom and detachment. He urges Arjuna to seek the guidance of wisdom in his actions, rather than being driven by the desire for specific outcomes. This verse teaches that acting with wisdom and without attachment to the results leads to greater peace and fulfillment. It encourages us to perform our duties with a clear mind, free from selfish desires, and to trust in the process rather than obsessing over the outcomes.
बुद्धियुक्तो जहातीह उभे सुकृत दुष्कृते तस्माद्योगाय युज्यस्व योगः कर्मसु कौशलम्.
In this verse, Lord Krishna explains that a person who acts with wisdom and detachment, guided by the principles of yoga, rises above both good and bad actions. Such a person is not bound by the results of their deeds. Krishna encourages Arjuna to practice yoga, which he describes as the skillful way of performing actions. This verse teaches that by applying the wisdom of yoga, we can transcend the dualities of success and failure and perform our duties skillfully and without attachment. It emphasizes the importance of maintaining balance and wisdom in all our actions.
कर्मजं बुद्धियुक्ता हि फलं त्यक्त्वा मनीषिणः जन्मबन्धविनिर्मुक्ताः पदं गच्छन्त्यनामयम्.
In this verse, Lord Krishna explains that wise individuals who are guided by wisdom give up attachment to the results of their actions. By doing so, they free themselves from the cycle of birth and rebirth and reach a state of eternal peace and freedom from suffering. This verse teaches that true wisdom lies in detaching from the outcomes of our actions. By doing our duties without attachment to the fruits, we can break free from the cycle of karma and attain lasting peace and liberation. It highlights the importance of performing actions with a balanced mind and a sense of inner detachment.
यदा ते मोहकलिलं बुद्धिर्व्यतितरिष्यति तदा गन्तासि निर्वेदं श्रोतव्यस्य श्रुतस्य च.
In this verse, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that when his mind rises above confusion and delusion, he will no longer be swayed by various teachings or desires. Instead, he will find inner clarity and peace. This verse teaches that wisdom clears away the fog of confusion. When we move beyond our doubts and misunderstandings, we become less affected by external influences, gaining a calm and focused mind. It emphasizes the importance of inner clarity and the ability to see beyond illusions.
श्रुतिविप्रतिपन्ना ते यदा स्थास्यति निश्चला समाधावचला बुद्धिस्तदा योगमवाप्स्यसि.
In this verse, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that when his intellect is no longer disturbed by contradictory teachings and is instead steady and focused on meditation, he will attain true yoga or union with the divine. This verse teaches that inner peace and clarity come when we are not distracted by different opinions or external influences. When the mind is calm and focused, we can achieve a deep state of meditation, which leads to the realization of yoga or spiritual union. It emphasizes the importance of a stable and concentrated mind in spiritual practice.
Arjuna uvacha Sthitaprajnasya ka bhasha samadhisthasya keshava Sthitadhih kim prabhasheta kimasita vrajeta kim.
In this verse, Arjuna asks Lord Krishna to describe the behavior and characteristics of a person who has achieved a steady mind or Sthitaprajna. Arjuna wants to know how such a wise and stable person behaves in daily life, how they speak, how they remain composed, and how they act. This verse introduces the concept of a person who is spiritually grounded and unmoved by worldly distractions. It shows Arjuna's curiosity about the qualities of someone who has reached spiritual stability and is fully absorbed in meditation. This verse sets the stage for Krishna to explain the trait of a spiritually enlightened person.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parthamanogatan atmanyevatmana tushtas Sthitaprajnastadochyate.
In this verse, Lord Krishna explains the first characteristic of a Sthitaprajna. Such a person has let go of all desires that originate in the mind. They are content and fulfilled within themselves, not relying on external things for happiness. This verse teaches that true wisdom and peace come when we are not driven by desires or external pleasures. Instead, we find joy and satisfaction within our own self. It highlights the importance of inner contentment and detachment from worldly desires in achieving spiritual stability.
Dukkheshvamanudvikvamanas Sukheshu vigataspruhah Vitaraghabhaya krodhas Sthitadhirmuniruchyate.
In this verse, Lord Krishna describes the qualities of a Sthitaprajna. Such a person remains calm and composed even in difficult times and does not become overly attached to happy moments. They are free from strong emotions like attachment, fear, and anger. This verse teaches that true wisdom involves staying balanced regardless of life's ups and downs. It emphasizes the importance of emotional stability and detachment from both sorrow and pleasure. A wise person is not controlled by the emotions and remains peaceful in all situations.
Yes sarvatranabhisnehas tat प्राप्य शुभाशुभं नाभिनन्दति न द्वेष्टि tasya pragya pratisthita.
In this verse, Lord Krishna explains that a person with steady mind is someone who remains detached and unaffected by life's circumstances. Whether something good or bad happens, this person neither celebrates nor despairs. Their mind is steady and balanced. This verse teaches that true wisdom means not being overly influenced by success or failure. It emphasizes the importance of maintaining inner peace and not getting caught up in the highs and lows of life. A wise person accepts everything with calmness and remains centered.
Yada samharate chayang kurmognaaniva sarvashah indriyani indriyarthebhyas tasya pragya pratisthita.
In this verse, Lord Krishna compares a wise person to a tortoise that pulls its limbs into its shell. Just as the tortoise protects itself by withdrawing, a wise person can control their senses, pulling them away from distractions and temptations. This teaches that self-control is an important part of wisdom. To be wise, one must not be overly driven by the desires of the senses, like for food, entertainment, or material things. When a person can manage their senses, their mind becomes stable and they can focus on what truly matters.
Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinah rasavarjam rasopyasya parandrishtva nivartate.
In this verse, Lord Krishna explains that a person can give up the physical pleasures of life, but the desire or attraction towards them might still remain. However, when someone experiences a higher spiritual truth or understanding, even that desire fades away. The message here is that real freedom from desires comes not just from avoiding material things, but from realizing something much greater, spiritual wisdom. When we connect with a higher purpose, worldly attractions lose their charm naturally.
Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushascha vipaschitah indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manah.
In this verse, Lord Krishna warns that even a knowledgeable person who understands right from wrong can still struggle with controlling their senses. The senses, like sight, sound, and touch, are powerful and can disturb the mind, leading it astray from one's goals. This teaches us that self-control is a lifelong practice. Even the wise must stay alert and focused to manage their thoughts and actions, because distractions are strong and can
Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matparah vashehi yasyendriyani tasya pragya pratisthita.
In this verse, Lord Krishna advises Arjuna to control his senses and focus his mind on the divine. When a person masters their senses, such as not being easily distracted by the desires or temptations, they become wise and remain steady in their understanding. This verse teaches that the true wisdom comes when we have control over our desires and thoughts, staying focused on a higher purpose or goal. By practicing self-discipline, we can keep our mind calm and make better decisions.
Dhyayate vishayan punsas sangasteषु pajayate sangat sanjayate kamak kamat krodobhijayate.
This verse explains how desires and negative emotions grow within us. When we focus too much on worldly things like objects, wealth, or pleasures, we become attached to them. This attachment leads to desires, and if those desires are not fulfilled, we become frustrated and angry. It teaches that we should be mindful of our thoughts and not let desires control us, as they can lead to negative emotions like anger and stress. Staying focused and not overly attached to material things helps maintain peace of mind.
Krodhat bhavati sammohas sammohat smriti vibhramah smriti bhranshada buddhinasho buddhinashat pranashyati. This verse teaches the harmful effects of anger. When we get angry, our mind becomes confused. This confusion causes us to forget what is right and wrong. As a result, our ability to think clearly is destroyed. Without clear thinking, we make bad choices.
which can lead to failure or downfall in life. The message is to control anger before it leads to bigger problems, helping us stay calm and make better decisions.
रागद्वेषवियुक्तैस्तु विषयानिन्द्रियैश्वरन् आत्मवश्यैर्विधेयात्मा प्रसादमधिगच्छति.
This verse explains that a person who can control their desires and dislikes, like attachment and aversion, will find inner peace. By mastering their senses and staying balanced, they won't be pulled toward things that make them overly happy or sad. When we remain calm and in control, even in challenging situations, we achieve mental peace and clarity, which leads to a harmonious life.
प्रसादे सर्वदुःखानां हानिरस्योपजायते प्रसन्नचेतसो ह्याशु बुद्धिः पर्यवतिष्ठते.
This verse says that when a person achieves inner peace, all their troubles and worries disappear. When the mind is calm and balanced, it helps them think clearly and make wise decisions. A peaceful mind is not easily disturbed by difficulties, and this calmness brings true happiness and understanding. So, by staying serene, we can overcome any suffering.
नास्ति बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य न चायुक्तस्य भावना न चाभावयतः शान्तिर् अशान्तस्य कुतः सुखम्.
This verse explains that a person who is not focused or connected to their inner self cannot have clear thinking. Without focus, there is no peace in the mind, and without peace, true happiness is impossible. Inner calm and focus are essential to experience joy and contentment in life.
इन्द्रियाणां हि चरतां यन्मनोनुविधीयते तदस्य हरति प्रज्ञां वायुर्नावमिवाम्भसि.
This verse highlights how our senses like sight, sound, and touch are constantly seeking different things in the world. If the mind chases after these distractions, it loses control, just like a boat being tossed around by the wind. Without control over the senses, a person's wisdom and understanding get swayed away. This teaches us that focusing and controlling our senses is essential to stay calm and wise.
तस्माद्यस्य महाबाहो निगृहीतानि सर्वशः इन्द्रियाणीन्द्रियार्थेभ्यस्तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता.
In this verse, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that true wisdom comes when a person gains full control over their senses. If someone can stop their senses from running after worldly pleasures and distractions, their mind becomes stable and they can make clear decisions. Just like a strong tree that stays firm despite the wind, a person with controlled senses can maintain wisdom and peace. It teaches us the importance of self-control for mental clarity and inner strength.
या निशा सर्वभूतानां तस्यां जागर्ति संयमी यस्यां जागृति भूतानि सा निशा पश्यतो मुनेः.
This verse compares the spiritual awareness of a wise person to the person with ordinary understanding of the world. For most people, the focus is on worldly pleasures and desires. This is like being awake to them. However, a person who has control over their mind and senses finds those distractions meaningless, as if they are in darkness or night. On the other hand, the deep truths of life which ordinary people ignore are what the wise person is truly awake to. This teaches us the value of self-awareness and the ability to see beyond temporary pleasures.
आपूर्यमाणमचलप्रतिष्ठं समुद्रमापः प्रविशन्ति यद्वत् तद्वत्तकामायं प्रविशन्ति सर्वे स शान्तिमाप्नोति न कामकामी.
In this verse, Lord Krishna compares a peaceful mind to an ocean. The ocean is vast and remains steady, even though countless rivers flow into it. Similarly, a wise person remains calm and undisturbed, even when desires or temptations arise. They don't chase after desires, but let them come and go without getting attached. This is the key to true peace. In contrast, a person who constantly runs after desires will never find lasting peace or contentment.
विहाय कामान्यः सर्वान् पुमाश्चरति निःस्पृहः Nirmamo nirahankaras sa shantimadhigacchati.
In this verse, Lord Krishna explains that true peace comes to those who have given up all selfish desires. A person who doesn't crave for material things and lives free from possessiveness and ego, the sense of I and mine, is at peace. When someone detaches from worldly desires, they are not troubled by emotional ups and downs like greed or pride. Without the need for constant satisfaction, they can remain calm and content. The key message is that peace doesn't come from fulfilling desires, but from letting go of them and living without attachment to possessions or the ego. This leads to a life of balance and inner tranquility.
Esha brahmi sthitih partha nainam prapya mibhuvyati sthitva syamanta kalepi brahma nirvana mricchati.
This verse explains the ultimate state of spiritual realization known as Brahmisthiti or divine consciousness. Lord Krishna tells Arjuna that when a person reaches the state of inner stability and wisdom, they are no longer confused or troubled by life's difficulties. They are firmly rooted in peace and clarity. Even at the time of death, if a person remains in this peaceful state, they achieve Brahmana Nirvana, which means freedom from the cycle of birth and death. This state is not affected by external circumstances as the person has transcended all desires and attachments, leading to ultimate peace and liberation. The main point is that true peace and enlightenment are achieved through detachment, wisdom, and inner peace.
Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Sankhya Yoga Nam Dvitiyodhyayah Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.